On to the order of unfinished business. Anyone seeking recognition on the order of unfinished business? Mr. John Curran. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We discussed this a little bit before, but I know we don't normally respond to public comment in the meeting, but I think we got something today that essentially was a legal opinion, and I wanted to ask our state's attorney some questions to kind of further flesh this out on the resolutions that were passed 2 weeks ago. It was Mr. Kraft, stated that all you need to do is just look back to the previous ordinance that was passed, and nothing beyond that. I know it was discussed at a previous meeting when we had asked about, I think it was specifically the vehicle allowance for the countywide elected officials, that it was an ordinance, I believe it was in 2000, that established the vehicle allowance for the countywide elected officials. Once that's established, by passing a salary resolution later in time, does that wipe that ordinance away? Does that make that null and void going forward?
Member Curran, Attorney General Ryan back in 2000 issued an opinion addressing a similar subject, and it actually did deal with the vehicle allowance. That opinion was 00-13. And there the general opined that as long as compensation is authorized and properly established within the statutory time frame prior to the start of an official's term, it continues to be available thereafter and may not be changed during that official's term, even if that official hasn't taken advantage of that particular form of compensation. Implicit in General Ryan's opinion is that there is no requirement that a public body must reset compensation every 2 years. Only that compensation it sets must be set 180 days prior to the start of an official's term of office. When you're comparing and you're looking at the Local Government Officers Compensation Act, which was adopted in 1994, and for all units of local government established that or required that if that unit sets compensation, it must do it 180 days, it basically was a limitation on the scope of government rather than a mandate. It wasn't to authorize or require that it be done every 180 days before the start of the term. It merely stated that if you are going to set compensation or change compensation, you had to do it prior to the start of the term of office, that far out at least.
And so then the history here has been when the form of compensation that's been debated every 2 years has been salary. There have been years where it hasn't been changed, but years in which it's changed, the salary component has been taken up by resolution.
As far as I'm aware of, after 2000, there were no subsequent movements by the county board to change the vehicle allowance or expand it beyond the countywide elected officials who received it.
Okay, so that in the original dollar amount that they're given and the application to who it applies to is
$450.
Has been the same since 2000. It has not been changed. I guess just more generally, I would ask then, for the state's attorney, to get your office's opinion on the resolutions that we passed. I know you worked on them, but in hearing what Mr. Kraft had to say, are we in compliance, with the law and how we went about it 2 weeks ago?
After reviewing the previous resolutions that were adopted by previous county boards, including one that went back as far as 1977, I believe that the method in which the benefits, and not all of which would constitute compensation or salary, were established were proper given the time. I think the county board has taken additional steps to provide greater notice and the continuity of those particular benefits and compensation going forward.
Thank you, Mr. State's Attorney.
Further discussion, Ms. Chaplin.
Thank you. Is that 1977 resolution in the 9,396 pages of information I received? I guess I now know who FOIA request I received. Is that in that? And could you show me could you let me know the page number too?
I have the resolution number if you'd like a copy.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. I'll get it from you after. And yeah, thank you.
Further discussion? Anyone seeking recognition? Mr. Zay.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. John. As we talk about this, and I know we have a lot of lawyers on the board, but, We just don't write these resolutions on our own. These resolutions are prepared and sent to our state's attorney, who I have all the confidence in the world that is doing everything within the legal limits that is given to us by statute and by state law. So anyone who thinks that we're just coming up with this information, as in a contract, as in a resolution, as in anything that is done here in the county, it is sent to our attorney, the state's attorney, Bob Berlin, in his office, and is reviewed and is clearly sent back to us. If there was a problem with the legality, I can tell you Bob Berlin would have a phone call to the chairman or members of this board telling them, you can't do this. So again, everything that's being done, I think, is more than up on the up with our state's attorney, Bob Berlin. He gives us 100% of his opinion, I agree with, and that anyone who's questioning that, I can't see why we're not doing it on our own. The state's attorney is giving us these resolutions to move forward with within the statement of the law. So, Rick, thank you for your stuff, and thank you for your office for what you guys do.
Thank you, Mr. Zay. Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of unfinished business? Mr. Krajewski?
I talked briefly with Chief of Staff Tom Kukolich and then Paul Rafek today. We had a report, a couple weeks ago about Illinois Department of Revenue miscalculating the replacement tax, and that many municipalities, counties have to pay back